Last Wednesday, like millions of people around the world, I was watching the news awaiting the first manned spaceflight to launch from the USA in 9 years. But with only 15 minutes until takeoff, the launch was called off because of unfavourable weather conditions. Because for the conditions to be right to launch from Kennedy Space Center, the weather's got to be clear from Florida all the way to Ireland. And within seconds of the launch being aborted, Twitter exploded with conspiracy theorists claiming the launch had been aborted because NASA were not able to fake it. Here we're dealing with a group of conspiracy theorists known as space deniers. Some of them claim that everything NASA says it's done is fake, and others go further, claiming that space itself doesn't exist. And it should come as no surprise that those people think the Earth is flat and that we live under a dome. One of the first tweets stated this: "NASA not real, government fake it every time." Well, sir, with such a masterly command of the English language, I'll be sure to take your opinions extremely seriously. Another common thread to emerge was people saying it's even less convincing than the fake moon landings 50 years ago. First up, the Apollo 11 landing happened 51 years ago. And I can't understand what it is with these fucktards. Because every time their delusional ideas that the moon landing was faked are utterly debunked, they still cling to it. A common argument used by conspiracy theorists who say the moon landing never happened is that NASA no longer has the original magnetic tapes which recorded the moon landing, therefore it must have been faked. However, the issue with that is that by saying that because the magnetic tape doesn't exist, it couldn't have happened, that means that Led Zeppelin didn't record their first 2 albums. That also means the Beatles didn't exist, the Kinks, in fact all music from the 1960s through to about the mid-70s. They were all recorded on the same magnetic tape which NASA used. The thing is, the tape wasn't meant to last forever. And I've said this many times before, but the issue with conspiracy theorists is once one of their arguments is shown to be false, they then rely on another conspiracy theory to back it up. So why did NASA abort the launch of the Crew Dragon rocket? Apparently there was a fault with the green screen. How big is this fucking green screen meant to be? Have you seen the size of a Falcon 9 rocket? And it's not like they'd really need a green screen anyway, because green screen effects can still be achieved with a blue background, like the sky. That must be why they called off the launch. All those clouds were messing up the background for those NASA bastards and their shape-shifting reptilian overlords. And when space deniers claim that all NASA's findings and presentations are fake, I think NASA put a lot of fucking effort into that. There are space deniers who claim that the space shuttle isn't real. But it did over 100 launches. Why fake 100 fucking launches for something that isn't real? And a really simple way of looking at it is that at night you can look up with the naked eye at the sky and watch the satellites going overhead. So if they aren't man-made, what the fuck are they and how the fuck did they get there? And that's before we get to the elephant in the room. And this elephant is sodding massive, in full circus regalia, with acrobats around it and a couple of jugglers for good measure. The rocket which NASA will be using to send men to space from Kennedy Space Center isn't built by NASA. The Falcon 9 is built by SpaceX, a private company run by billionaire Elon Musk. So why would one of the most successful businessmen in the world put his reputation on the line supporting the fake space agency NASA? And if it is fake, SpaceX seem to be following NASA's lead by putting hundreds upon hundreds of hours of video showing the rockets being made, fired, and also when they failed. So when conspiracy types say that NASA fakes its business so it can extort money from the American taxpayer, the majority of money on this mission is going to a private company. And the idiotic idea that green screen is being used. Well, okay, at the moment the world is in lockdown. But what about every other rocket launch where thousands of people turn up to see it happen? And no, they don't all work for fucking NASA! And my question to space deniers is this. If there is no such thing as space travel, and it is a huge global conspiracy by all the international space agencies, why do they put their hardware on display for us to see? I've been to the Science Museum down in London, I've been to the National Space Centre in Leicester, and I've been to Kennedy Space Centre in Florida. If the moon landings never happened, and if the space shuttle never flew, then why is it the 3 Saturn V's that weren't used and the remaining space shuttles are all on public display? I will now endeavour to recreate my reaction upon seeing a Saturn V. Fucking hell! Look at the fucking size of it! I had a very similar reaction upon seeing the Atlantis space shuttle. And if SpaceX were in the business of building phony rockets to take part in fake launches, they could have picked a less conspicuous place to put their factory. Because SpaceX rockets are built at Kennedy Space Center. Meaning that every year, hundreds of thousands of tourists go past the SpaceX facility with their digital cameras and zoom lenses. The launch of the Crew Dragon rocket has been rescheduled for tomorrow, the 30th of May 2020, and that will be at 8:33 here in the UK. And if conditions are right, it will be visible in the sky for a few minutes in the evening. And if that's the case, I'd love to know what conspiracy theorists think it is. I just realised I recorded the entire video wearing this hat when I was supposed to be wearing this one. What a twat.